Hi, everybody. All right, everybody, come on back in. You're not going to want to miss this. So for our next segment, I'd like to invite back on stage our amazing customer keynoters. So if you'll please join me, Maud, Pam, Raj, Tom, and Kalman. Come on up. All right, guys, have a seat. To lead the conversation now, I am very pleased to introduce to you Michael Facemire.
Is that where this?
Mike is a developer at his core and a VP at Forrester in their application development and delivery practice. Mike is leading the definition and coverage of the evolving digital experience developer platform space. Mike is a leading expert on mobile software development processes, next-gen architectures, and I am told he has 23 issued or pending patents in the areas of mobile software, collaborative systems, content management, and media services. Pretty impressive stuff. Mike is going to spend some time now helping all of us to unpack the stories we heard from these wonderful, wonderful individuals, and really just to get to some of their learnings and things that can help you and you can take back to your work. So with that, it is my distinct pleasure to introduce Mike Facemire.
Lauren, thank you. Good morning, folks, and good morning to the panel. Thanks for joining us all here today, and thanks for coming back after the break. I always enjoy doing these panels because in my job as an analyst, and I have to remind myself I'm an analyst because as Lauren said, I'm a developer at my core, I'm a technologist at heart. But in my job, I get paid to talk to all of you and get paid to talk to folks like this and learn. And I never would have thought that growing up as a developer, sitting in dark rooms writing code, that someday all these things that you want to learn, they'll pay you to do it. And if you can turn around and take that same information and help everybody else, it'll be even better. And so what I want to do today is talk about some of the things that we've heard about over the last couple of days, talk about things like digital transformation, or is that really a thing, or is that the buzzword of today? Do we really need to digitally transform, or maybe we're already there? What does that mean? What does it mean for the business? How do we do it? Some experiences these folks have had. What about data? We've heard a lot about cognitive. How important is cognitive in this transformation and everything we do? And then finally, what about kind of the emerging technologies, things that are coming out, AR, VR, and are these real? Are these things that we'll actually do, or are these things that make for good demonstrations on a stage, but maybe we need to wait a little bit? And so we're going to jump right in with our panel here today, and hopefully you all have seen the presentation, so I won't kind of go deep into introductions. We'll get right into some good data, some good conversation. So I'll start off by asking the panel, and Pam, I'll start with you. Digital transformation, was this a thing that you set out to do? Did you wake up one morning and think, you know what, today I'm going to start digitally transforming Canopy Health?
No, I did not. I think we knew, given the market, that we had to compete.
Yep.
So it's more of a branding and positioning standpoint.
Yep.
And then as I was talking to you earlier, we have a two-headed monster. One is probably more known and predictable to work with, and that is the patient and the member. We have a better understanding what they would want from a consumer perspective. The other piece is the physician themselves. That is a harder, more unique animal, and how to get them to engage, because once again, people come for healthcare to engage with a partner, and that usually is the physician. So, and the physician is a very busy individual, they're very nomadic, they're processing a lot of different information, and so we really haven't had a chance to really think through what do we need to do to create a digital transformation for that physician so they adopt.
Yeah. Now, as we're all humans, we all probably have had interaction with healthcare systems, and so when I think about, digital transformation in healthcare, that means I can probably use my device and schedule an appointment, or maybe if the doctor wants to talk to me, they can send me a push notification, or more importantly, especially as a dad, when my kid is sick. Or he acts weird, or like half of him turns blue because his brother painted on him or something, I feel like I should be able to text my doctor.
Right.
And say, hey, can you help me out here? Is that what digital transformation is? And if so, are the doctors in love with this type of thing?
So accessibility directly to the physician is probably one of the key pain points. Accessibility to get an appointment is one thing, but that appointment could be tomorrow, a week from now, a month from now. So we try to create what we'll call care teams. So maybe you can text directly to a nurse and they will respond to you, but at some point you actually want to speak to that physician. There's also compliance issues, because with texting, depending on the platform which you're using, there's a lot of personal information in there that you have to be really careful of, because doctors will text each other to ask for advice or get information, but that's not protected. So we're trying to get physicians to use texting, but in the right way and in a platform that is compliant and preserves the integrity of the data. The physicians don't want to respond to a text right in the middle of surgery.
Right, right.
So there has to be a way, if people have solutions out there, I'm more than happy to hear about them, of how to take all of the requests of physicians and find ways in which to sort them out, because they get calls from the hospital, their office, their patients, and they get it in 5 different ways, depending if they practice at multiple organizations, because they all have their own electronic health record, they all have their email boxes, and they just have to log on to all these boxes.
Yeah.
And they're getting very irritated about how to do that. But when you get a text from a patient, you have to have that context. And sometimes you don't have that information, and try to look it up on your phone when it's 0.1 font makes it very, very difficult. So finding a way to pull that patient data to provide them some context with that question would actually be of help. I don't know if I answered your question.
No, absolutely. And that all makes sense from a kind of consumer perspective and understanding the physicians. But Raj, when you think about your industry in addressing a B2B need, does that experience still matter? Because when I think about B2B, it's a sales guy carrying a bag of either sales materials or supplies or parts, or out in the service industry. Does digital transformation for you in your industry, is it distinctly different than what we heard from Pam? And how important is that experience? And then if it is important, how important it is for you to even personalize that experience for the individuals?
Right.
Your thoughts on that digital transformation?
First of all, I don't like the word transformation, because it's kind of repackaging the old thing. I mean, I would say, for me, digital means creation. How can we create? Like what Amazon did, what Facebook did, right? How can we create? You got to change the thinking from competing to creation. Can we do that? It's tough, but that's kind of the thinking I have. Like, how can we reinvent? How can we create new things so that we can delight our customers or partners, right?
Yeah.
I think experience still matters. Like as Maud said in her presentation, empathy, right? So when you say digital, it's not like okay, I'm giving you something, it's not personalized, it's like, okay, I'm just mass producing something or mass giving you something. It still have the empathy. I mean, to me, you have to invoke that emotions. That's where the experience happens, right? Then you'll have stickiness.
Yeah.
And if your customers want, or partners, they need to come back to you, you need to invoke that. Amazon does it really well. Google does it really well in different ways, right or wrong, right? So people do that. So you have to have that experience where they can say, oh, I can go there, right? I can go to that app, or I can go to that website, and I can get all the information you need. B2B, as you said, it's different, but they are still human beings. Yeah. They are consumers, right, still? So they are kind of spoiled. So expectations are getting higher, and they will say, oh, I'm not able to find it. Yep. Then they'll go to somewhere else. I think that's the beautiful thing about digital, right? If you don't give it, somebody else will give it.
Right. I love that phrase that we're still humans. And
yes.
It always seems like in my conversations when we talk about building digital experiences and the things that we all want to use and the things that we enjoy and create that emotion, we often think about the technology, or we think about the data, or we think about all the non-human things. But if we always come back to that human part, all of a sudden things become a lot simpler. Now, the one person up on this panel that might deal with things that truly aren't human, Tom, you probably know things. You probably know things. So, with NASA, we know you know what lives out on the planets. You have an interesting challenge because you have all this different data, tons and tons of disparate data that we could probably transform the world and transform everything. But at the same time, you have a lot of different personas and a lot of different individuals that need to get access to this data. How do you make that match? How do you marry those things up?
Yeah, that's definitely a challenge that we face of different user needs, user requirements. We really have two core requirements. One is to save the data, make them available long term, but to get them to the user communities that need them. And that's whether it's change, transformation. We've had data since in the 1960s. The lunar orbiter took film images of the moon, developed them on the spacecraft by itself, and then digitized them to send them back to Earth. I mean, the data has always been kind of data, but it's how our end users can access the data. And up to now, it's been downloading a few images or different data products at a time to work with them. But what we see that's a change for us where we have to transform is supporting new AI methods, data-driven discovery, scalable data processing, where a user cannot necessarily download a 100 terabyte data set to work with it at whim. So how are we going to support new methods for working with the data? Conversely, there's almost a kind of an anti-digital transformation in which we want to make sure that we capture the knowledge and the intent behind how the data were captured and the why, so that we don't just have, oh, here are a bunch of numbers that mean something, and maybe you can even figure out what they mean, but why do we care? And that's not always been part of our process. We certainly keep documentation about how this camera was built, but don't always keep track of why were you looking at this part of another planet, or why did you go to that asteroid? So it's a complete story that we want to support.
Yeah, that makes me think about context. Like, how do we create context? When we think about building digital applications and digital experiences, context becomes important, not only for understanding why we created the data we have, but also for things like personalization. Maud, I know personalization has become critical in what you do today and what you're doing moving forward. When you think about personalizing an experience for your users, is context a thing that you do, or how do you actually get the right data at the right time to create a personalized experience?
So basically, first, a cookie usually would live with an individual for 2 years. So based on how they behave, that's how we get the contextual information. How they behave, what they do, what they are interested about. So we get the context, and then we promote what they are interested about. And that we are trying to balance the parameters which are very technical with a lot of humanity. And I agree that emotions and human beings will not change. We will see a lot more cognitive development and abilities in technologies. Yeah. But I strongly believe that we will not see a machine that will have more empathy than a real human being.
Yes, yes. With regards to cognitive, how ready are these services, these systems, for what you need today? So when you think about your business needs and think about what you want to build, are the things that you need out there? Are they available? Or do we still have work to do? As an industry, are there still things that we need to build to meet your needs? Are you being held back at all by technology?
That's a very good question. Yeah, I think we are in a stage where the disruption in terms of technology is so huge that it's really Star Wars. I mean, the sky is the limit. Yes, we don't have today the technology that would meet the ultimate digital experience craft, basically. And I'm convinced that during the next 2 to 3 years, we're going to see amazing things developing. And during the next 10 to 20 years, something even more amazing. And actually, I turn this back to you because I was in your session yesterday. And you had this slide where you were mentioning that web browsers are going to be a thing of the past in 20 years' time, which is something that I also believe. I believe that it's going to be so different that many things that we experience today, we will look at them like, oh, I remember when I was 30-something and I was doing this. Oh, my God.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. The technology is moving very, very quickly right now, and as Maud pointed out, for all of you that weren't in my session, I know it was a smaller room. We couldn't fit all of you in, but you know, happy to have the discussion at another time. But I believe that we are the last generation to actually use a web browser. So that's just my statement out there. But with regards to the things that are coming in 10 to 20 years, when I was a kid, which might have been longer than 10 to 20 years ago, close, I believe we would have things like flying cars, and I would be able to go to the moon. I wanted to be an astronaut because I think my generation, that's what we all wanted to do, and so I hope that we continue this pace of innovation. But when we think about the power of cognitive and the power of AI, Coleman, I know this is core to your business as well, and you're starting to make use of this. Do you see any challenges with the state of AI today? Because AI isn't new, machine learning isn't new. So what you're using with it today, are there challenges that you see and challenges that you think we might have a problem getting past that? Thoughts on how you're using cognitive in your business in those areas?
Maybe before I'm answering your question, I would like just to clarify, because there are two components important, is what we are calling digital transformation that are common. So is technology. Why we are talking about digital transformation? Because those technologies that you are mentioning are available for all of us, for everyone. It's not making difference. And the second one is that the digital transformation actually is a fundamental transforming your company, your culture, your organization to be able to use and to get value from those technologies. So it's not technology, but it's organization and culture. Yeah. To be ready really to value the digital and to put the digital at the core of your business. So at TBH, what we have done a couple of years ago, so we have identified the 5 different major domains. So where we can use and put this digital technology at the core of the company, and certainly there, data and software, and this is where we are talking all about, and certain analytics is at the core of the digital platform, but existing business processes, so you have your core business process, what you can do in this business process to improve and to introduce new components from this digital. This is one. The second one, definitely, which is, by the way, is driving the whole, is the customer experience. What you can do and build to improve your customer experience. Not forgetting your internal people, so your employee experience. And then what we can do to build new products and services besides of the existing ones. And finally, how we can build a completely new digital business models. And actually, what we have seen this morning in the demo of DIMIT, this is all about. This is what we are trying really to build for our industry in there. What behind is a lot of cognitive components, so which are fueled actually by artificial intelligence. So today, you have mentioned that today, the artificial intelligence is nothing new, so mathematically is defined 50, 60 years ago. But what is new is the ability to execute. We have the computing power, we have the possibility to keep data, enough data, and it's really allowing us, let you say, to play and to define new models and new domains and new areas inside of your existing business, or as we are trying to build at the TVH, defining a completely new business model, which doesn't exist today, based on those technologies and combining those. So this is where really we are looking as far as artificial intelligence is concerned. And behind there are definitely a lot of domains. So one what you have seen is predictive modeling, where your machine is supervised or unsupervised machine learning, helping you to build those models, but chatbots and image recognition and speech recognition and virtual assistants, all those are not all of them perfect ready, but is moving to be ready in a soon. And it's all about how you can combine and how you have to use your priority and money from each component to increase your outcome.
Yeah. So of all the companies represented up here, I'm actually probably a part of the smallest one. We have roughly 1,300 people worldwide. And yet we, in my company, we have a culture. It is known, and if I were to come in one day and say, we need to change that culture, that's a monumental task. But Colin, as you pointed out, this transformation oftentimes isn't just technology, but it's culture, and it's creating or transforming a digital business as well. For a company like yours that is global, and probably has many cultures or pockets of culture, how do you go about doing that? When you think about making this transformation and using technology to help this, when you start to run into the culture thing, what do you do? Any thoughts there?
So actually, the most important one is that you can realize and move towards what we are calling a data-driven culture and data-driven mindset in your company. So really that organizations are not just in the technological side, to understand what does it mean, what is the value. So start at a high level, so board level, and certainly going and in a wider way to have this new way of how we are looking to what we are calling certainly data. But the most important is this, to moving to the capability to execute. So this is the agile, the whole agile, not the agile methodology. The agile methodology probably all of you are using for many years, but to implement an agile organization. So agile organization to moving fast together like a team. So we have chosen for methodology of Spotify, defining self-driving team with a mission board and having a certain objective and saying, let's do it. Yeah. And do it together with your customer. Start with a minimal viable product, build it based on the customer experience, not waiting until you are building a big solution coming to the market and saying, oh, wait a minute, this is not what the market is expecting. And certainly to get together the business and the technology people in one single trend, and this is what we are, and what we have also realized, managed to move from the concept of project in the concept of digital product, having the product owner inside of the team, which is a business guy, understanding and really have this product life cycle and introduce in the whole DevOps methodology, but including not just you are building, you are running, but also you are supporting that. So this whole transformation is quite, and you need really coaches, agile coaches, as good people in order to realize. It's fundamentally the most difficult transformation.
Yeah, Mike, to me, it's about leading, right? So change is all about leading. And that leading doesn't have to be from CEO or CIO. It can be from anybody. Even a developer can lead. Because a lot of people don't understand the capabilities of technology. Mm-hmm. So as a developer, as an architect, you can show that, okay, the technology can do this and that. So then you can think through, okay, what else we can do, right? So this is where, to me, is details matter. You know, we say digital transformation, but we have to get into details. For me, when I say details, it's about changing the behavior. So I'll give you an example. Like in our company, so we've been delivering software or products, and it's basically tightly coupled with the front end. So with digital, we have to have API first. Mm-hmm. But people don't normally think about that. They will say, okay, I have the requirements, I deliver. Right. I mean, I wouldn't blame them because that's how it is set up. So now we had to change the thinking and say, okay, how can we raise the level of abstraction so that this can be exposed anywhere, not just the one front end, like the omni-channel, right? So that kind of mentality has to happen, at the bottom up level as well. Like, how do you build things? We cannot just say, okay, this is a strategy, but if you don't know how do you build it, like the details, that will have, huge challenge. So for me, it's about leading and getting into details.
Yeah. Now, is there a danger? You said even down to a developer can lead, and Kalman, you made the point of bringing the technologist in the same room or on the same product with the business. I'll tell you that from my mindset as a developer, I go back to, there's a scene in a movie, Almost Famous, where the kid stands on top of the roof and says, "I'm a golden god." As a developer, that's how I look at the world. I am a golden god. I can make anything. And we will. We'll chase any butterfly, anything that's shiny, anything that moves. As developers, we want to do all of that thing. So it seems to me that there's a balance between having technology lead this conversation and lead the potential, but also having a business outcome at the core. Pam, you and I talked about that a little bit. Your thoughts on that, of marrying those two things together?
Once again, I'll go back to the two-headed monster, because I think the patients know what they want and what the outcome to be. I think sometimes the physicians are not as clear on whether or not this is the same outcome that they want. And so
So
who wins? Who?
Benjamins?
Yeah.
Benjamins. Well, you go, we were talking earlier, just the cognitive solutions, and a lot of companies spend a lot of time up front creating solutions to engage the consumer and all the cognitive solutions that process things and does the artificial intelligence. And it kind of breaks down as it goes down I'll call the supply chain. So the front end, the middle, and the back end. And usually in healthcare, somewhere along the way, the physician is either in the middle or at the end.
Right.
And if they don't want to behave or engage in that process, then you just disappointed the patient at the front end. Yep. So you have to look at all those things all the way through, and you have to have champions at each part of the way. So you always, in healthcare, you always have a patient focus group that you engage them, but you bring the other caregivers in the room so they hear from the patients what they need. And then you try to get a physician champion who actually will work with their coworkers to convince this is a new way of doing X, Y, Z.
So you've got that two-headed monster. Tom, I feel like you probably have like an 18-headed hydra of the different users that you have to try to meet their needs.
It's not just the users. Data providers come in all flavors about. Some will say, here's our instrument, it produces this kind of data, and we're going to give it to you right away. And we want to say, well, you kind of look through it. Do you have your calibration right? And other ones, they want to just hold on to it forever. There's a lot of room for culture change. It's internal, external, on the user community, external to people who are not maybe stakeholders yet, but can be. And part of that is listening to all facets, but understanding when the change is relevant to what you're doing and when it's necessary. And I mean, there's no straightforward answer. I think we all struggle with those kind of things about when we want to make those changes. And quite often, we have to pull back. I mean, we always are asking our user communities, how can we support you better? New features, new products, those kind of things to help guide us. And that's where a majority of our changes come from, is our end users. And then some things we recognize. But at the same time, that change can be slow, and we have to try to not push it so fast. There's a saying that science progresses through funerals. And I think it's not just science, but many parts of our world, it takes time for people to adapt.
Yep. And Maud, in your business, you have very passionate users that are directly impacted by the service you're providing. How important is it for you to do ethnographic research and actually talk to them and find out what they want versus just using technology and just getting analytics and saying, oh, well, they use the technology this way, we must be doing it right or we must be doing it wrong? What's the human technology interaction that you have there?
Well, everyone who's been involved with customer experience knows that you rely on data and on qualitative research. So it's a mix of both. So Wärtsilä typically would have like a survey which are generated at a specific time, like after the order, after the warranty period, and are we doing a good job at servicing your installation? And at the same time, we also have a lot of qualitative survey ongoing. And as a really data-driven company in terms of gathering data and maybe more importantly, connecting the data together, because I think today we are talking about the purpose of doing things. We've been talking about the expansion of data. It's exponential. There are so many data in the world which are in open places these days that you can totally kill yourself with trying to making sense of it. So today, the job of a B2B company is to onboard data scientists, to make sense of the data and to drive the data scientist towards what is the desired outcome. And the desired outcome is the purpose. And as I was mentioning, in Wärtsilä, for us, the purpose is extremely key to any kind of pilot project initiative that we would start to do. And we are taking a lot on the endeavors, and some of them, they are failing. I mean, it's no wonder. I mean, when we say, digital world is fantastic, well, yeah, there's plenty of failure. I mean, let's be honest. And then you need to learn from these difficult times, and then you go back to your drawing board and you start to do something better.
So that's an outstanding point. We had touched on culture earlier and changing culture. I think one of the big changes that happens when we build faster, and Raj, you talked about it a lot in your presentation about having to be quicker and go to market quicker and build things faster. Build things faster, we hear the phrase fail quickly or fail fast,
or fail
but as
forward.
A culture, failing is bad. That just goes together, fail, bad. How important or how successful have all of you been in changing that mindset so that we fail and learn instead of fail and never do this again? Anyone have thoughts on that?
I don't use the word fail, I use the word discover.
So
it's about the mindset that you create by the words that you choose. Right. And so you have to have like this virtual thesaurus in your head.
Yep.
To set the right precedents. And fail has a lot of different connotations for a lot of different people. But discover has this explore, search, and learn. So I try to use words that kind of emulate what I'm trying to get the group to do.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So actually in this agile organization, there are some basic principles where really this is what we are calling the culture of failure or continuous learning, or risk mitigations are included. No more risk avoidance, but just, okay, certainly it will happen, what I have to do. I will fail, what I have to do, what I have to learn to improve, so that this continuous improvement actually should be included. But it's important to get out the maximum from your people. And this is, you have to identify where the creativity in every single individual is located. Move away from fixed functions, like you have just mentioned, I'm a developer. In a certain context, why not are you an architect or are you whatever, which is fit best in this moment. So you're taking a role, taking a responsibility inside of the team and making your team actually is a winning team. This is all about.
Yeah.
Cartman, would you say actually that empowering people is actually a very difficult journey with an organization of 6,000 employees?
So definitely, so what we are talking about, agile and agile mindset. So not every individual is ready to get an agile mindset. Not every single people is getting to get responsibility. Some people are still waiting that somebody tell me what I have to do today. So this is very difficult. And this is the role of the agile coaches, what they're doing every single day, coaching those guys that are not technology guys, they're human guys. Build an efficient football team. So this is all about, actually, if you are the best player in the team, but your team is losing, the result is there. So actually, this is all about, so really motivate people, and seeing the result is really motivator, a big motivator for the people.
Yeah, I think I like the word discover. I think I'll definitely use that.
But,
yeah.
Go ahead. Please.
Yeah, so to me, I think as Tom was saying before, so it's about persistence, right? So you have to sense it, like, you have to sense, okay, are we ready for the change? Or you just throw it or plant the seed and then keep germinating, right? So you have to be persistent, and you have to make sure that, okay, you keep the persistence up so that, this doesn't go back, right? So it's a difficult thing, like nobody wants to fail, but if you change the thinking, say it's not failing, it's discovering, it's even better, right? And yeah, I mean, every big company has got this challenge, and the challenge is internal. It's not external, right? External. And expectations are high, but internally they don't know. And when you don't know what human beings do, they just ignore it, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So the sensing and the being persistent is what Tom and Pam was saying. I think we need to change the language as well. So that way it's better and people will be safer, right? You have to create a safe space, which Kalman was saying, and also Maud was asking the same thing. So there are different things in play when you have human beings.
Yep. So creating that safe space, you had mentioned earlier that anyone can lead, but can the safe space only be created from on top? How do I create a culture where folks are willing to take chances and build things? And this actually, from my perspective, gets back to a digital platform in which if we make data available and we tell folks go dream, they will. But they have to feel comfortable in using your data and mashing it up and creating a quick and dirty MVP or POC. They have to feel like it's safe to do that, and they won't be looked at, oh, you were spending your time frivolously. When it comes to discovery, how do we create Lewis and Clarks? Can that just organically grow, or does the leadership on top have to make that happen or create that environment? Yeah. Thoughts there?
Well, I think, I'll let you jump in. I think it has to be intentional. And as much as we talk about digital and data, it's still a story of people. I've got one person that I have to push to try to be creative. I've got one that wants to be creative way too much.
Right.
Dude, I know I'm going to ask you, don't do this one thing, like play over here in the sandbox. I know you're going to go play in that sandbox, like maybe next week, but today you can't play in that sandbox. So knowing the people. On the flip side, when you're perhaps not in that leadership role yet, or the one that can facilitate that culture change, it can be challenging, and sometimes you do have to cut your losses and saying, I have to move to a place where I can, grow myself, but grow with the team around me. Yeah. And sometimes you just have to make that call.
Yeah. There's a phrase, this will show you how old I am, from the business books, talk about management by walking around. Mm-hmm. Okay. And when you can touch each individual that works with you, even if they're not a direct report, you can engage them in a conversation and recognize them for whatever they've done, or what did you learn when this happened? It actually encourages people to take those risks because you've reached out and made a personal touch, or you recognize something that they did that was really hard, that even if they failed, you can say, that was really hard, and I really appreciate what you did, keep going. They'll do it. Yeah. Because somebody actually reached out to them and recognized what they did as an individual. Yeah. And that takes time. That management by walking around, to me, is a real powerful thing to do. A lot of people don't do it very much. Yeah.
Maybe answering your question related to the platform and what does it mean, actually, the digital platform. So definitely, if you consider that digital is moving to the core, you have to consider it at the core, the analytics. This is where everything is crossing, all other vendors. At the same time, you need a very solid system of records to improve, to support what is running. And starting from that, you have to define what you would like to build. Is this customer experience done? Yes, you need a customer experience platform where you are really building the whole customer experience. If you would like to build an IoT business, you have to build an IoT platform which is supporting this business. If you would like really to go in a collaborative way, then you need a whole ecosystem that you have to. So according to the priority that you have to consider, you are choosing the right balance, but every time, not forget the focus is on the analytics, is on the data. As far as strategy is concerned, this is really, everyone is talking about digital strategy. It's important to consider that you can have a strategy including the digital, or you have a digital strategy. This is totally different. Yep. It means that starting from the board, is what we are building is a digital strategy for the future. And this is where the digital businesses actually are coming out. And for instance, at TVH, as I mentioned yesterday in my presentation, we are building a platform business. So this is a new expression of one of the models actually that you can build in, and you have to consider accordingly to get everyone behind this model.
Yeah. So we've got a couple minutes left. I want to finish up here with asking each of you to give just a couple words on the biggest challenge or the biggest unexpected challenge that you've run into as you've been working in your companies to do these things. Oftentimes when folks call me, they'll start out the conversation and saying, I know we're behind, but. So everybody feels like we're behind. Everybody feels like there's somebody else ahead of them, but I always point out, even if there is someone ahead of you, oftentimes there's not. Oftentimes we're all pretty close together, but we run into different challenges. We run into different stumbling blocks, different roadblocks. So Maud, I'll start with you and go down the panel. The biggest unexpected thing or the biggest challenge that you faced that either you were able to solve or are still solving that is completely unexpected to you?
With a big organization and many different cultures, you want your people to grow and to develop new skills. And the fact that it's not homogeneous, but you need to provide like a unique path to grow for each individual is extremely hard. And it's still, to this day, in Wärtsilä, it's difficult. We have lots of ideas and are exploring and discovering. and I think it's a real challenge to get each and everyone in the company on board, engaged, and growing and developing with the same purpose. It's difficult.
Yeah. Pam.
I think very similar to her answer is that multi-tier change process. So each level within the organization understands, they adopt. And then what amazes me, even though you think your message is crystal clear, it's kind of like the story of the blind man and the elephant. I say, so you all have blindfolders on, and they're holding a part of the elephant in each division or department. And each person thinks they've got it, but it's actually, if you're holding the trunk of the elephant, you think you have a rubber hose. If you're holding the leg, you think you've got a trunk. If you're holding the tail, you think you've got a fan or whatever.
Right.
And people don't realize until they take the blinders off that it's actually an elephant. So it's really trying to get people to take those blinders off and really understand each perspective and then try to bring it all together. And it takes a lot of work. And sometimes it's within a department, let alone different levels. And so really that's the human part is the hardest part. Yeah. The technology part, that's straightforward.
Easier, right?
It's easier, yeah.
Yeah, to me, it's inertia and action. I think, it's the takeoff problem, right? People are stuck, and and they are kind of in two minds. Like, should I take off? Should I stand here? Should I go? Right.
Right.
And the challenging or the interesting thing about digital is that if you don't do it, somebody else will do it, right? And again, it's not coming from your industry. It may be coming from some other industry. So be ready. Like as they say, change is always constant.
Yes.
So you like it or not, you're always changing. So I think that's the challenge. And as Tom said, there's no single answer, right? So you have to keep trying. And
But what happens when you actually change somebody's work? That's probably, when I think about it, that's probably the biggest resistance, if when you change how somebody does something or you threaten the role that they play. Is with these chatbots and repetitive types tasks, they may not have a job, but yet you're asking them to participate in these sessions
right.
for requirements, and they're thinking, why would I do this if I don't have a job at the end of the day? What about me? I mean, have you guys worked through that?
yes, I think we're still working through it. And again, the machine and the human thing, that's still an open question, right? And I don't think, to me, if you ask me personally, machines will complement humans. In what shape or form? And I don't know yet what that is, but it'll definitely complement. So even when you have chatbot, it's going to complement our call center rather than take the job away. That's my feeling. I may be wrong. But
Tom?
Yeah, for us, the biggest challenge that really was unexpected is we knew we had some diversity in our user base, but how many different kinds of things they were trying to do. Sometimes with the exact same data, this person's trying to do something completely orthogonal to what this guy over here is doing. But at the same time, serving out those needs is the big challenge. We also have limited resources, so identifying both how we can best support the entire community, and then also making sure that we're providing solutions that can support the longer term needs as well.
Yep. And Colin,
So yes, so we have indeed a lot of interesting, challenging technological challenges for sure. Some of the technologies are there but not ready. You have to figure out how to compose the right architecture, but it's not the biggest problem. So the biggest problem that I'm seeing, and I'm not the only one, is that the distance between technology and the human is increasing. So the technology is moving much faster than the human. So we are still, a lot of us, we are assuming, I'm not included by the way, so that what you have learned 10 or 20 years ago, you will stay with this one for the whole life. So the distance between the reality in the school actually is increasing. It creates a lack of right sources, right humans, understanding what is going on. And certainly, at the same time, unfortunately, a politics is also not with us to sustain the old regulation, all kinds of things, which is actually creating this distance. It's making our life, I mean, a lot of companies, much difficult than that. And we have discussed a lot about learning. So the only way is that everyone's really stepping in this mindset of continuously learning, because everything around what you are seeing is continuously changing. So we have to adapt at a much faster pace than before, and this is everything about humans. So the bigger difficulty is that.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank each of you for your thoughts, your insights, your presentations earlier, and your comments here. And I also think it's a very strong statement that when we talk about what is the biggest challenge, what we did not hear was the technology. And so each of you have built on solutions that are represented here. So I think the Progress folks can be very, very happy that they've provided technologies that have made it easier for us to get to the truly hard problems. So with that, thank you. Thank you all.
All right, thank you everyone. Mike, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it. And thank you so much, Pam, Kalman, Raj, Tom, and Maud. Thank you guys so much for sharing your perspectives.